To commemorate the United Nations International Day of Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And I thank you for giving up the time, the precious time, to share this time with me and the thoughts that I wish to share with you. Friends, every year on the 21st of March, the world pauses to reflect on the urgent need to eliminate racial discrimination in all its forms. March 21st every year. Today is not just about remembering the past. It is a call for action for all of us, for each one of us, as individuals and as a nation. Our country needs to build a future that is grounded in the values of fairness, respect, and unity. This year's theme for the Convention Against Discrimination and Racial Discrimination is particularly significant. For 60 years, 10 years before we became independent in 1970, the 21st of March has drawn global attention to racial discrimination and the need to dismantle it. The adoption of the Convention Against Elimination of all forms of racial discrimination was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in New York in 1965. The Convention was a commitment by the world to ensure that no person is judged or excluded or limited because of their race or their ethnicity. And we mark this anniversary. As we mark this anniversary, I want you to ask yourselves, as we must ask ourselves, have we done enough as individuals and as a country to live up to those commitments? I want now, before I talk a little about racial discrimination and what we have experienced in this country, to share a little with you this afternoon some background about my upbringing, to put some context to what I want to speak about later on racial discrimination. My father, Leung, was born in Fiji, in Leung, in 1926. My grandfather had come from southern China in the early 1920s, at the time when China was undergoing great hardship and poverty. My father met and married my mother, Fanny, in the Leung's old capital, Leung. Her father was Chinese, and her mother was an indigenous Fijian woman or lady from the village of Vunimono in the Tikina of Maleva in the province of Leung. My father was a butcher. And you know what butchers do. He was not a high-profile politician, a lawyer, a doctor. He was a humble but very hard-working butcher. My mother was a housewife. I have four siblings, all of whom were born in Leung, and I spent my early childhood in Leung, and I attended Mars Convent School in the late 50s, early 60s. Of course, none of you were born then, I suspect. I was the youngest in my family of 5 children. In those days, my family spoke English at home. Occasionally, my mother would speak to our children in Fiji, in Punjabi dialect. My father never spoke to us in Chinese, although he understood both dialects. In Leung, my parents befriended a 30 family. In fact, they befriended many families. In particular, a name that comes to mind is the family of Leung and Sabina Leung. Leung came from the village of Karamati, or Vunimono, and his wife, Sabina, came from the village of Napo, in Oberon. I was welcomed into that family, and spoiled by them, and treated better than they treated their own children. Leung, in those days, was something of an ethnic melting pot. Our neighbors included an Indian family, ran a laundry, and my parents had a wide circle of friends of all different races. Occasionally, Dr. Arthur Das and his wife Maureen would stop by for a cup of tea. We had my parents and other friends from other communities. Names that come to mind include the Youngs, Sandys, Pattersons of Shipping Bay, and Dr. Rasiduri, the younger brother of Officiates Schooner. He and his wife, Rosalie, were very close friends with my parents, and they often stopped by for a cup of tea or just to say hello to my parents and children. Interestingly, one of the sons of Dr. Yogi was the late Dr. Manray to me, and we grew up together in Leung. Dr. Choli, of course, he and I went to study law together at Adelaide University. We started work around the same time in the Attorney General's chambers. And those of you that follow newspapers know that Dr. Choli Manray became a High Court judge and later Vice President of the Nation. So, friends, my early years in Leung were happy and carefree. The young kids of those days played games like P or tag or pani. They also played top and threw kites. They were not of the forms of games that you have today. So from an early age, Leung shaped my attitude to race and to race relations. Growing up in that era, I was naturally conscious that my appearance from the majority of kids around me was different. I was the only Chinese in the neighborhood. Someone recently asked me whether I was the target, was I ever the target of racial slurs. Occasionally, one of the village schoolers would tease me and say something like, at the time, of course, the kids can be quite cool and sensitive. And later, when my family moved to Montana, I remember a classmate of mine referred to me as Daji. And for my Gujarati friends, that means China. So when I look back at my childhood, those racial forms stung me at the time, but they were isolated incidents. It wasn't common. I have never believed that Fiji is a racist country in the way that racism was and is practiced in some other countries in the world. So let me just share a few words with you morally wrong. And there is no justification for racial discrimination. I think I mentioned that he accepted the principle of conviction soon after the gain of independence in 1973. I'm going to speak this part about the history of conviction, and I will talk a little about some of the laws that deal with racial discrimination. In this country, we have laws that raise a crime to incite racial antagonism. If you cause ill feeling or bad feelings of hatred towards people of a different race or a different community, that is a crime for which you can be prosecuted and sent to death. Under the Public Order Act, it is a serious offense to spread hate or cause division between different races, different religions, or communities. Words that are spoken that promote racial hatred, spread false information, turn people against each other, and create fear and insecurity in another community are offenses against simply their crimes. And the penalties for breaking the law are quite severe. You can be sent to jail for 10 years, or you can receive a fine of up to $50,000. I want now to cast our minds back to the history of this country. A history, I think, which is important to share with young students and pupils here this afternoon. The journey to build greater racial harmony in unity is work in progress. There have been times when we have failed each other, failed ourselves as a nation. But we cannot move past. All we can do and all we must do is to learn from the mistakes we have made in the past as a country and to ensure that we do not repeat them in the future. In 1987, for example, and the year 2000, and the year 2006, we experienced some racial incidents and some of the worst riots in our history took place. Fiji was sorely tested at times. Came close to the edge of cliff, but for the grace of God, we did not fall. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that in large part, this was due to the reservoir of goodwill the majority of ordinary people in this country. We managed somehow to largely preserve social order and harmony for which people have known. However, I have to say that these periods of lawlessness and law-breaking have set us back and have caused damage to race relations in this country. It has eroded the trust between our different communities. I want to ask, who are we as a people? I take immense pride in Fiji's or our multicultural heritage. My story is not unique. Many of us are descendants of people who either came to this land seeking a better future, whether by choice or indeed by circumstance. And over generations we have built a home together. Okay? The Fijians, the Tumas, Barnabans, the Legions, Part Europeans, Chinese, and other ethnic groups. Each but as they influence and shape one another in ways that have made me truly unique. We celebrate Diwali, we celebrate Christmas, we enjoy sweets of Diwali, and so on. If while we celebrate our diversity, we must also acknowledge times now when racial differences have been used to divide us. There have been moments when suspicion and fear have created walls between communities. Yet here we make the feel that we are separate rather than part of the same family. Ladies and gentlemen, this is precisely why today is important. It is a moment for us to acknowledge our past mistakes, to celebrate our progress, and to renew our commitment to working towards true racial equality. I want to say something about the data of other races. The word other race is spelled O-T-H-R-I-N-G. It's an unusual part of speech. At the root of racial discrimination is the act of othering. You might ask, what is othering? Othering simply is the tendency to draw a line between us and them. Othering happens when you see some people as belonging and others as outsiders. When somebody is seen as the other, it becomes easier to dismiss them, to treat them unfairly, or to believe they do not deserve the same respect and opportunity. Othering can start in small ways. For example, assumptions about a person's character based on their surname, judgments about their worth based on their appearance, or dismissive attitudes towards customs different from our own. But history tells us that these small acts, allowed to go unchecked, can grow to something much more dangerous. We, as I have mentioned, have had difficult and challenging moments. Times when racial and ethnic divisions have threatened our unity as one nation, one people, under one banner. But if we look beyond our shores, we see that in many places around the world, othering has led to even greater suffering of wars, oppression, and even genocide. Those of you that are students of history will know, for example, in World War II, 6 million Jews were killed in Nazi Germany. In Cambodia, there were massive acts of genocide in the 1930s. In every case, it started the same way, by convincing people that their neighbors were not brothers and sisters, but others. That is, people to fear, people to keep at a distance, and people who are inferior. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why, as a country, we must remain vigilant. We cannot allow seeds of division to take root. Fiji must never be a country where anyone feels like a stranger in their own land. I will repeat this. Fiji must never be a country where anyone feels like a stranger in their own land. To anyone listening today who might even suggest that Fiji is not home to those of us who are not okay, I say to you today, the descendants of immigrants reject those feelings. Those thoughts are racist, and they run against the tide of history. This is not who we are. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that the majority of people in this country are peace-loving and kind. Let us not be distracted by extremists any color. I believe that history will not judge them kindly. Now, for those of us who have traveled abroad, we have all at some point felt like what it is like to be us. Those of us who have left or traveled abroad, we become minorities. We go to New Zealand, Australia, United Kingdom, and so on. We no longer set the norms. We walk through foreign streets where the language is unfamiliar, where the customs are not of our own. And in those moments, what do we long for? We long for a piece of home. We find ourselves searching for a familiar face, hoping to hear someone greet us in the way we know, and when we meet another teacher. Whether they are Turkey, or any other background, we do not stop to ask them where they come from. The moment we see them, we feel a connection, a sense of belonging. That experience should remind us of a simple truth, ladies and gentlemen. What unites us is far greater than what divides us. If we can recognize this truth when we are far from home, why do we sometimes struggle to see it when we are standing side by side in our own country? Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that our diversity as a country should be a cause of celebration because it is one of our strengths. I want to talk a little now about the concept of neighbor. I'm sure you all have neighbors. How many of you, would you put your hand up? How many of you in this room don't have neighbors? You all have neighbors. I want to share with you some thoughts I obtained from the Old Testament. The Old Testament tells us the Israelites, after enduring oppression, cruelty in Egypt, were constantly reminded by God, do not mistreat or oppress the foreigner, for you were a foreigner. That is drawn from the book of Exodus. God commanded them to remember their suffering, not so they could dwell in it, but so they would never repeat it. And Jesus carried this message even further, calling us to love our neighbors as ourselves. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, Jesus challenges us to expand our understanding of who our neighbor is. The Samaritan, despised by others, is the one who shows true compassion. And the lesson, ladies and gentlemen, is clear. Our neighbor is not just the one who looks like us, or who worships the same church as we do, or shares our customs, or speaks our language. Our neighbor is the other, the one who may be different from us in race, culture, and background. And yet within that difference, we are called to embrace one another with love. Because our neighbor demands and our faith demands. The other holy books of the other religions say pretty much the same thing. For example, while the Gita does not explicitly condemn discrimination, it emphasizes the universality of the divine and the importance of treating all persons with respect and compassion. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, there is no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab, or a non-Arab over an Arab, and no superiority of a white person over a black person, or a black person over a white person, except on the basis of personal piety and righteousness. Ladies and gentlemen, if we truly believe in the teachings of our faith, whether it is Christianity or Hinduism or Islam, then we must actively reject racism. We cannot and must not allow discrimination to exist in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, or in our institutions. I want to say a few closing remarks about a call to action. While we can and we must acknowledge that we have made some progress, we must also recognize that we must work a lot harder at removing discrimination or perceptions of discrimination in our country. For example, in the way opportunities are distributed, in economic disparities, and in the biases that sometimes seep into our institutions. We cannot ignore these realities because they exist. But today is not just about acknowledging problems, it's also about bringing solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that the politics of race is limited. What we should be doing more as a country is concentrating on trying to improve the lot of the situation of the marginalized people in this country. That means doing more to reduce poverty, finding jobs for our young people, and improving the state of our hospitals. This afternoon, I challenge each and every one of you as future leaders of this country, which the other speakers have mentioned. Challenge, for example, your own biases or prejudices. Examine your hearts and see whether you harbor any kind of prejudice. We must, as a country, promote greater inclusivity in every space. We must ensure that inclusivity is reflected in every aspect of our society, not just in our schools, in our workplaces, but also in our sports, in arts, and in life generally in the country. In education, for example, we must ensure that children of all backgrounds learn side by side, sharing experiences that shape them into adults who see each other as equals. And I agree with the previous speaker that I think it is about time that we and the appropriate actors will make the policy for the major racial groups in this country. In employment, we must remove barriers so that everyone, regardless of their background, has the same chance to succeed. In sports, we must celebrate the way our national teams bring us together, whether it be rugby or some other sports. For example, rugby with all teams and its players has a great potential to bring people together. It has enormous potential to unify the country. I think everybody here is what's the name, and Jeremiah Dwight, so people of different backgrounds are all supporting PG 17 and 15. The performing arts, we have groups like the dance PG, the ball dance group, have shown how blending traditions from different cultures can create something that is truly spectacular. Performances that are rooted in our shared identity, but take inspiration from all the cultures that make up this country. Let's ensure that everyone, regardless of ethnicity, has equal opportunities to participate and to lead and to excel. We can move closer to a PG that truly reflects the ideals of fairness and equality. I would like to share with you my belief that you should grow up understanding and believing that diversity is a gift. It is not a threat. The more we interact closely with one another, the more we know someone of a different race or different religion, different background, different political beliefs, we will have a little bit more care and understanding of the different people that live in our community. It will be built up slowly, and I think that's how, hopefully, it will shape our thinking and how we look at others and see our own place in society in this country. I want to end with and share with you my vision of what the future of subject might look like. My vision, ladies and gentlemen, of Fiji is of a Fiji where race is not a barrier, but a bridge. A Fiji where no child is made to feel lesser because of their ethnicity. A Fiji where we celebrate difference and diversity, but never allow them to divide us. As we commemorate this 60th anniversary of the Convention on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, let us renew our commitment, not just in words, but also in action. Let's work together toward a future where future generations will look back and wonder why racial discrimination was ever issued in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, building a better future starts with each and every one of you in this hall. And here are some practical steps that can help you. Be colorblind. Treat everyone the same, regardless of their race or their background. Spread love. Channel the energy of Leung and say, 2024 Spanish. Love is the antidote to hate. If you see racism or bullying in the school or in your neighborhood, speak up and call it out. Stand up for what is right. Speak out against discrimination. When you see an injustice happening to your neighbor or to somebody else, do not be silent, because silence allows racism to persist. Learn about other cultures, try new foods, and learn to appreciate the beauty that lies in our differences. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my sincere hope this afternoon that one day, when the world looks at this country, they do not see a divided people. They see people that are resilient, that are diverse, and that they are united. Remember this, your generation has the power to redefine what it means to be gay. Not based on race, or religion, or creed, but on character. May we always choose unity over division, love over hate, and hope over fear. As we celebrate this International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, I encourage you all to commit to the values of mutual respect, of tolerance, understanding, and unity. Let us practice kindness and compassion towards one another. And I wish to end my speech to you today by quoting the late former Vice President of Fiji, Tony Manguini. And I quote, "It is time to move forward together, stronger for the bitter experiences we have shared, wiser for the suffering bigger than us, and more compassionate for having the capacity to forgive." I would like now to make some brief comments to address the tailgate students in the audience. Ao pare te muni na loro ke na mai leo, o ke muni te piparao o sanu na ki fora. The big mind, the big on sight, the no big on fight. I'm not the no people, and not the case. Ao waka ke muni kenda, na iyo, a tuna waka mo, o lama. Aka tutu oko pa usi saki pri tu alo au sa dina anoda nambula saka nambula di loma nanoda nambula di piscina per che la causa di sta nambula di qua kalau sa tipo di loma da prova prova na vale o caleva sempre. I would just say because you're encouraging the Turkish youth and reminding them of the importance of tolerance, respect, and love. Number 3 commandment of faithful to God, great commandment, love, and that we impose to all of us.